can just watch, okay? All right, so now I should be recording this in ScreenFlow. So now I'm back in Illustrator. I have my two layers, petals and image, and I created the new layer by clicking on this button right there. That's the new layer button. And now I'm going to make sure that I'm actually targeted on the image layer, and I'm going to go File, Place. And there is the image I want to place. I'm going to select it and click Place, and you'll see that right now on the cursor the image is saying 1 of 1, and if I do a single click it will paste it or place it at the size that I want. It is not pasted, it is placed, but if I click and drag it will place it at the size I define by clicking and dragging. It will keep it to the correct aspect ratio. I cannot squish it or distort it at this point. It will correct itself. So there it is. So if I don't like it, I can delete it, and again it's see how giant that is? Not so helpful. File. Now some of this is really kind of unclear as to what's going on, but what you want to start defining for yourself is what is background, what is middle ground, what is in front of that, what is in front of that. So where are the layers? Where do you start? You do not have to start in any one particular place. You can start wherever you want. Now let's talk about the pen tool here in the next 10 minutes, and then the other awesome tools that are in here that may make you happier. I have no desire whatsoever to force your process. I only want to show you what's available. So I'm going to go to the pen tool because that's the first tool that you might think you want to draw with. The pen tool works by clicking and setting down anchor points and then defining or analyzing the curve that you're drawing, and the second click actually places an anchor point, and then the drag is the angle of incidence or the depth of the curve. So the shorter you drag, the tighter the curve, and the longer you drag, the bigger and floppier the curve gets. So it also gives you this inference, this line that's flipping around up here. Try to watch the demo and try not to do it because you can't have your mind in the two places at the same time. So this line that you see happening, that's an inference line. It's inferring where the next line will go. This is not really a vector yet. I didn't get to my explanation of bitmaps and vectors, but bitmaps are like the photo, which is the background made up of squares of pixels, and vectors are geometric equations that define shapes with anchor points, direction lines, and actual lines themselves. Those are the vectors. So here is my first attempt at making a petal. It is not a closed shape until you click the point that you started with. You'll see a tiny little circle appearing there. All right, so you might be like, well, that looks okay, but it's not really that smooth. Now, I'm not really going for exact realism or exactitude at this point. So over here in this pencil tool, there's a tool called the smooth tool. This is a personal preference of mine. I really like this tool. With the smooth tool, you can run this tool on a curve and it just kind of smooths it and smoothing it. I don't always like what it does, but sometimes it's really helpful. It's kind of making that a little bit too tight. In Illustrator, you have multiple undos. I'm using Command-Z to undo those steps. And then you also have a redo, which is Command-Option. Oh, I'm lying. It is redo pen, Shift Command-Z. Okay, so there. Now it's back. So most tools, when you double click on them, have an option. So you can make them more or less accurate or smoother. So I've moved this a little bit more to accurate. So I'm now, see, that looks much more smooth now. So I'm just running this smoothing tool on this petal. In the final analysis, I'm not going to keep these black lines on there. But they're okay for now while I'm drawing. And then I'll go to the next one. So it's click, and then find where the curve changes direction. Click and drag. The less drag, usually the more economical the curve will be, meaning a little more accurate, a little tighter. You can see as I move, it's inferring what's going to happen. Come down here and click again. I don't know how that bug is staying on there like that. And that's a closed shape. Now that's a shape as opposed to a line. So the idea here is to pick something simple so that you can start getting really comfortable. When you get really close to something like this, see how I want to draw this next petal, but this could be an issue. If I click where I want to start this petal, which is right there on that point, I'm really going to end up getting kind of wonky. That won't be good. So Command Z, don't delete it, Command Z, and then just pick a different place to start from where there's nothing interfering. So here it's a click and a slight drag. Click and a slight drag. These are tiny little curves. These are not big sweeping curves. They're tight little curves. And this is not my preferred drawing tool. I really don't usually use a trackpad. I usually use, believe it or not, a trackball. I really still like my giant Kensington trackball for drawing. And I also have a Wacom tablet. Trackpad, on a pinch, I can use it. But this is the smooth tool again, and I'm just kind of running it on here. Now, as I mentioned, and as you saw in the portfolio, I have a lot of different styles of ways I can draw. But your aim here is to be able to simplify this in such a manner that you can draw the objects that you need to draw. It's also important to know that when you click on a shape here, you're going to use this black tool. This is called the selection tool. This is for selecting entire objects and groups of objects, whereas this tool, which is the direct selection tool, allows you to click on points or vectors of objects or objects within groups. And I think that next week we should actually start with the demo instead of leaving it to the end so that you're not wasted by the time I'm doing this. The other thing is when I click on an element up here, at the very top I have this control panel, and this is a context-sensitive panel that allows me to see the settings of any individual object, and then under Window, we have a gazillion panels here. The good, the bad, and the ugly of this is that there are a lot of different places where you can look for settings, and it can be confusing. The color panel is where I can change the color, not necessarily the transparency of a color. Under Window, we also have other panels that regard color, such as swatches. And again, under Window, we also have transparency. These are all things that are related to each other, and there's even another one called the appearance panel. So that's like kind of overkill. That's like 4 different ways, 4 different areas, not including the control panel. The nice thing about the appearance panel is that when you start working with objects with multiple attributes, it makes it easier to see what the attributes are doing. But I have one petal selected, and if I click here, you can see opacity says default. When I click on the word opacity, I can actually change the opacity right in here. You can select this field, and you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to change these numerically. I'm pressing the down arrow to lighten or create more transparency so I can see through where that ladybug is and did I draw that thing right. Please don't worry about perfection. You may find that you want to do a little practice with the pen tool, just like that was all straight clicks with no drags, okay? Inside of the pen tool, there's another tool called the anchor point tool. That's really not a good name for that tool. This tool should be called the convert point tool. That's what it used to be called. And when you, because that's what it used to be called, that's what it should be called now. Don't you know that? No, but this lets you convert a point from corner to curve. So I clicked on it and dragged, and it became a curve point. Now it's a bent piece of toast, and now it is a zombie. So yes, watch tutorials, but understand that the idea behind the pen tool and its friends are to allow you to set down anchor points, which are then connected by the vectors, and then you've got your anchor point tool, convert point tool. And when you click on a point and drag, you can turn a corner point into a curve point. You can also turn these curve points back into corner points. Just click on them to turn them back into corner points.
Is that with shift?
Nope, it's just clicking. So pick something not horribly complex. Shouldn't be much more complex than this. Don't try to get every little detail. Make it graphical. Make it a simple, flat illustration. I could give you another example. This is of something, but it's not great. You want to see it anyway? I'll show it to you and then we should go. This is the kind of thing you're doing. That's a peach. Okay? Keep it simple. Don't drive yourself crazy. You're trying to create a graphic illustration, not a painting. Okay? Another example might be, I'll show you one more thing here. This is really even more simple. I'm going to stop the recording right after I show you this. So I'm going to go to here and I'll open this InDesign file. So in my own branding materials, I have a really simple graphic illustration of myself. Use the same thing on my business card, and I've been using this for a couple of years. It's very simple. It looks very clean and simple, but it also has just like a certain, my kind of a style of, stop that. That's fine, just close that. So this guy right here, that. And so when you're looking at this in InDesign, that's not in high quality, but if I go to View and I go to Display Performance and High Quality, refine the shapes, simplify. Do not worry about it being some idea of perfect. This is not about that. It's about getting your hand used to using the pen tool, if you haven't been using it, and creating layers for background, next layer, next layer, next layer. All right, that is it for tonight, guys. Are there any questions